when something about Africa is talked about, is normally bad, is normally violent, is normally something about the country or a disease broke, and it's never good. So your perception is what people have forced you to believe. So until you get the heart to go, I'm going, I want to see for myself, you don't know. So all I know is what the news says. So in my mind, I'm like, hey man, I'm not trying to go over there and get kidnapped. I'm saying from what I've seen. And then I go and I see an amazing city. We're blown away. Why not show us the amazing stuff that's over here? So when we get here, we see for ourselves, and then our senses are enhanced to where not only do we want to come back, but we want to come back and we want to be involved with things that you have going on.
Say the word Africa to most of the world and watch what shows up in their head first. If it's not poverty, it will be war. If not war, it will be disease, and so on. A single story told over a century so consistently that even a lot of us here who live in Africa have started believing pieces about it ourselves. Today, we are going to do just two things. First, we are going to check that story against the actual data. Secondly, and this is the harder part, we are asking what mindset we need to draw, because the world stereotype isn't the only obstacle. Some of it we carry ourselves. Welcome once again to Rise 54 Africa, where we talk about how to build wealth, how to align your mindset and habits with relations to success and living an excellent life as an African. My name is Divine Eski, and if this is your first time here, I want you to subscribe to this channel because we bring you educational content like this. Like and share the content across the continent and across the globe. But I would urge you to watch this video to the end, and I promise you that you will thank me later for revealing these secrets kept from us as Africans. You know what? Let's start revealing the secrets one after the other. This isn't new and it isn't accidental. Colonial era writing described the continent Africa as a place to be discovered, as a place to be civilized, and a place to be extracted from. Never a place with its own complex civilization, trade networks, and governance systems already in motion. That framing didn't disappear when colonial flag came down. It actually got inherited by newsrooms, by aid campaigns, and film industries that kept finding it profitable to tell one version of Africa, the one in crisis. A Nigerian novelist, Chimamanda Ngozi, has a phrase for this that became very famous for a reason: the danger of a single story. Not that the crisis stories we are saying are false. Yes, we know that poverty, conflict, and diseases are real in parts of the continent, and pretending otherwise helps no one. It is very dangerous if we treat this as the only story about 1.4 billion people across 54 countries. It is very dangerous if we treat that as the only story. So let's put the single stories next to the numbers. In 2026, the IMF found that 11 of the world's 15 fastest growing economies are African. The sub-Saharan Africa is projected to grow roughly at 4.4% this year, nearly 1.5 times the global average and more than 4 times faster than the Eurozone. Ethiopia is also projected to grow at over 9%, approximately over 9%, driven by industrial parks and public investment. Rwanda also continues to post strong growth on the back of services, finance, and governance environment that is pulling in serious foreign investment relative to its size. Guinea also now supplies approximately over 70% of the world bauxite export. Cote d'Ivoire has an average of over 6% annual growth for more than a decade. Africa's stock market capitalization reached over $1.2 trillion in 2024, nearly 6 times what it was in 2 decades earlier. And the continent's economic story is no longer just oil and minerals. It is now finance, logistics, manufacturing, tourism, and technology are now real growing piece of the picture. And none of this erases the real problem: debt pressure, currency volatility, and infrastructure gaps are still very real in the continent. And this same data shows GDP per capita growth is still slow to cut poverty as fast as it needs to. But growth at this scale, this consistently across these many countries we just talked about, simply does not fit inside the African is a place for crisis and nothing else. That single story isn't a lie about everything. It is a story that leaves out almost everything. Here's the uncomfortable thing: it is not just the world telling the wrong story about us, but you see, some of us have absorbed it too. You hear it in small ways. A young entrepreneur assuming a foreign made product must be better than a locally made one before even checking. Also, you will see that a graduate is applying for hundreds of jobs abroad and zero at home because nothing good is built here. That is their mindset. A business owner who also won't say the word Africa in his brand name because he's worried it signals cheap instead of quality. This is the internal side of the single story. When the outside world spends a century telling you a place is only good for extraction and crisis, some of that message get absorbed by the people who live there, quietly shaping what they expect from their own government, their own product, and their own future. You know, you cannot out-edge a global stereotype while still believing a piece of it yourself. Let me tell you this. So here's what the mindset shift actually requires. One, we should know the real numbers, not just the real problems. Because you cannot correct a stereotype you can't factually counter. Know your country's growth rate, know what industries are actually expanding. Walk into every conversation with maybe a foreign investor, a foreign employer, a foreign friend, armed with facts, not just pride. The second thing is that you need to hold both truths at once. Yes, real growth and real problems. Hold both truths at once. Real growth and real problem exist in same countries, often in the same year. Denying the problem becomes a propaganda. Only repeating the problem is the single story. And you know, maturity is holding both without flinching. Three, default to local when local is genuinely good. Not out of blind loyalty, but out of fair evaluation. See, actually test the local product, the local services, the local hire before assuming the foreign option is automatically superior. Sometimes it will be, often it won't be. 4. Become a source, not just a consumer of the narrative. Every founder who posts their real growth numbers, every journalist who covers the industry pack and not just the flood, every creator who shows the boring, competent, functioning part of Africans' life. Do you know what they're actually doing? They are literally rewriting the global data set the next algorithm and the next journalist will pull from. Silence let the single story stand unchanged. 5. We need to stop needing outside validation to believe it is real. The pattern to break is waiting for a foreign headline, a foreign award, or a foreign investor to confirm that something built at home is actually good. If the growth is real, the product is real, the talent is real, it doesn't need Europe's or American permission to be true. Let's get that. The world's single story about Africa was written by people who mostly weren't here to see the rest of it. It is outdated, it is incomplete, and increasingly the data does not support it. But rewriting it isn't only the world's job, it is ours. Starting with what we choose to believe about our own continent when nobody outside is watching. Know the numbers, hold both truths, back your own. That is the shift. If you were able to watch to the end, I hope this becomes an eye opener for you to realize what they've actually hidden from we as Africans. There are more contents like this to come. There are more explanations to this content to come. So stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if you've not. My name is Divine SK and this is Rise 54 Africa. I sign out.